Humanity had always been a species of builders. Long before the stars opened up, humans had paved deserts, drained swamps, and stacked cities 1,000 feet into the sky out of nothing but stubbornness and concrete. So when the galaxy finally noticed Earth, it expected another empire hungry for territory. Instead, it found a species that just wanted to grow things. The first alien contact hadn't come from a warship. It came from a half-dead agricultural transport limping through the outer belt, its hull scorched, its crew starving. Inside were the Meridi, slight willowy creatures with bark-textured skin and drooping frond-like limbs, who communicated in low, resonant hums that most human ears felt more than heard. They were botanists, terraformers, a species that had spent 10,000 years turning dead rock into orchard, prized across the galaxy for one reason only. They could make anything grow, which was exactly why the Vantic Concord had enslaved them. Sergeant Dana Osei had dirt under her fingernails and had for 6 years straight. She wasn't supposed to be a farmer. She'd trained for orbital defense. But when the Meridi refugee fleet had drifted into the solar system 9 years ago, starving and broken, humanity had done what it always did with strays: adopted them, argued about zoning permits, and built them a home. Dana knelt beside a young Meridi named Thistle, whose frond arms were wrapped gently around the stem of a wheat hybrid that shouldn't have survived Kepler's thin light at all. "You're doing the humming thing again," Dana said. "It helps them grow." Thistle's translator chimed, a soft chime-like voice. "You do not believe me, but the wheat believes me. The wheat's up 40% this quarter, so I'm inclined to believe you too." Thistle's fronds trembled, the Meridi equivalent of a laugh. In 9 years, Dana had learned to read every twitch of them. She'd learned the Meridi didn't lie, didn't raise their voices, didn't seem to understand cruelty as a concept at all. When the colony kids fell down, it was always a Meridi who reached them first, humming low reassurance before any human parent could even shout. That was why what happened next broke something in Dana that never quite grew back. The proximity klaxon didn't sound. It didn't have to. The dome simply went white. The Vantic Concord frigate reclamation's dew dropped out of slip space directly above New Meridian with no hail, no warning shot. Its first act was to vent Dome 7's atmosphere with a single surgical strike, then land 3 shuttles of retrieval troops in the wreckage. By the time Dana dug herself out from under a collapsed irrigation strut, the shooting was already over. It hadn't been a battle. It had been a harvest. She found Thistle in the ruined center of the dome where the wheat used to grow. The Concord had left the young Meridi's body deliberately intact, deliberately visible, propped against the shattered stem of the same hybrid crop they'd spent all season coaxing to life. A single frond had been torn away and driven into the dirt beside them like a marker flag. Thistle's translator collar, miraculously, still worked. It sparked once and caught Dana's boots approaching. "Sergeant," the small chime said, weaker now. "I'm sorry about the wheat. I did not finish the season." Dana dropped to her knees in the dirt. "Don't talk. Just don't. The Concord said Meridi belong in their gardens, not yours. They said an ape cannot own a gardener." A long pause, the collar crackling. "I did not feel owned, Dana. I felt planted." The translator gave one last soft chime and went silent. The wheat around them, the last thing Thistle had ever grown, kept standing in the wreckage, the only green thing left in a dome full of ash. The footage reached Geneva before the medevac ships did. Nobody had needed to argue about authenticity. The raw helmet cam feed spoke for itself, unedited, time-stamped. Merciless Ambassador Yusuf Karam had spent 11 years in that chamber, watching humanity fail to agree on shipping lanes. He watched this time as the footage ended and the room didn't erupt into shouting. It went dead silent instead, the particular silence of 300 people arriving at the exact same conclusion at the exact same moment. The Kenyan delegate didn't call for order. She didn't need to. "The Concord," she said quietly, "has mistaken our patience for permission." Every hand in the chamber went up before she'd even finished forming the motion. Humanity had spent 2 centuries at uneasy peace, and in that time it had forgotten nothing. Every dormant shipyard from Luna to the Jovian moons lit up within 30 hours. Freighters, mining barges, colony transports, anything with a hull and an engine, was pulled from civilian service and gutted for war. The design brief that went out to every foundry in the system was brutally simple. Nobody is asking these ships to survive. They are asking these ships to arrive. Where the Meridi had once terraformed dead moons into farmland, they now, unasked, unpaid, entirely of their own will, walked into the shipyards and started humming reactor cores into stability the human engineers hadn't managed to coax working in weeks. They wouldn't touch a weapon. Not one Meridi anywhere in the system would arm a warhead, but they made sure every human ship that flew true. 12 days after Dome 7, the first wave of the retrofitted fleet dropped into the Vantic home system, a swarm of ugly, welded-together hulls carrying rail-driven slugs of solid tungsten, moving at a fraction of light speed, indifferent to shields designed for elegant energy weapons. The Concord had built an empire on the doctrine that force was a conversation between equals, conducted with poise. Humanity hadn't come to have a conversation. High Overseer Threll watched his shield grid collapse for the second time in 4 minutes and understood, with the particular clarity that only comes right before disaster, that he had fundamentally misjudged an entire species. They fight like they have nothing left to lose, his tactical officer said, voice cracking. They don't, Threll said quietly, watching the swarm of graceless human hulls close the distance. We took something from them they can't get back. Now they're not fighting for territory. They're fighting so it never happens to anyone else's gardener again. Dome 7 had been rebuilt, glass and steel gleaming over fresh soil. In its center, where the wheat once stood, a small bronze marker sat flush with the dirt. No statue, no grand inscription. Just a single-line thistle. They finished the season for you. Dana Osi knelt in the new dirt, a young Meridi seedling beside her, its fronds still too small to hum properly. She pressed a handful of wheat seed into the soil the way Thistle had taught her, all those years ago. 1 row at a time. Somewhere above the dome, in orbit, 100 ugly gray warships sat quietly at anchor, no longer needed for war, not yet reassigned to peace. Waiting the way humanity always waited, patiently, and not for very long. If you loved watching a peaceful species get pushed too far and an entire industrial base answer the call, smash that like button and drop a comment on which alien allies Earth should adopt next. Stay human. Stay dangerous.